400 flips, 90 rentals currently in her portfolio, and over 30 years of experience, all in upstate New York. That's today's guest. Let's get to it. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jay Helms. I'm the founder of this podcast and movement known as the W2 Capitalist. Today, as always, I have a very special guest, Deb Cleland. Cleveland.
Cleveland, just like the city, just like Grover Cleveland.
There you go. Well, I'll take my my in-laws' maiden name is Cleland. That's why I got that mixed up. So anyway, out of the way, that is such a random fact. But Deb, after working her way up from a receptionist to sales at the age of 30, Deb chose to start her own business and invest her hard-earned money into real estate. Simultaneously, Deb built two businesses from scratch into multi-million-dollar operations. She achieved her success as a single parent with no formal education. I have my degree over there, but that represents a 2.5 or 2.7 GPA. Both of Deb's businesses thrived, and 16 years later, she decided to sell her core business to fully commit to her love of real estate, investing, and renovating. Today, up to today, she has restored over 400 units, ranging from single-family homes to a 42-unit apartment complex, and currently holds 90 rentals. Living in Rochester, New York, Deb, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jay. It's so great to be here.
And we were just talking off after, before I hit the record button, and I asked you a question about how is it to invest in New York? Because you live there, you invest there. We're going to get to that here in a minute. But what I want to talk about is in your bio is you talk about you're a master flipper, right? Or your bio mentions you're a master flipper. What does that actually mean, right?
What does that mean? So it takes a bit to learn how to fix and flip properties. I mean, the TV programs make it look so easy.
Oh, so easy. So easy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And when I see that, it puts a really interesting smile on my face. And the way I became a master flipper, Jay, is that it was practice. I feel like everything that we become masterful at, it takes practice. You know, at first, I remember my first flip so well because it was scary for me. I didn't know a lot about what I was doing. I knew that I was really responsible. I had like a good decorator eye, you know, for color and cleanliness and that. So my first flip when I was in my late 30s, all I did to that property was clean, paint, and sparingly staged it, and it sold within the first week that I listed it. I didn't make a huge amount of money, but I made over $12,000 on that flip. And I learned a lot from the process. Yeah. And every time I've gone to it, I'm in the middle of 4 flips right now. Wow. I've flipped 6 houses during COVID, at the height of COVID, which people said nobody's buying. Well, nobody's buying. And we got them sold, Jay, for top dollar to the first buyers that walked in. The very first ones that walked in wrote a full price offer, and many of them were cash. So the way that I became masterful is I just kept practicing. I didn't stop. Like I went on to, okay, so what's the next thing I can do to upgrade my learning on my next flip? Well, this time I'm going to replace countertops. And this next one, I'm going to replace flooring. I'm going to learn more about flooring. One of the least expensive things that I learned to add as I moved through that was to replace all the lighting that had matched finishes. And you know, some of the videos that I've created is around the smallest things that I call our decorator looks that create a really high value for very little cost, because I love selling to first-time home buyer market. Like that really is who I focus on.
Yeah. So I love what you just said there. There's a lot of stuff I want to unpack, but you basically took baby steps into flipping, and I have not really piece that together. I've actually heard other people talk about, well, our flips aren't, you know, it's very cosmetic. There's not a whole lot that goes into it, but it seems like you even dialed it back a notch even there to accommodate your risk tolerance. Is that fair to say? Like
yes.
Cause I've never flipped a property, and I'm to the point where, you know, I'm strictly buy and hold, single family, multifamily. and I've got one mobile home still, and but I can't justify any numbers that come across my desk for any of the buy and hold stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, it's time to shift. It's definitely a buy, it's definitely a seller's market right now where we invest. Inventory is low, demand is high, interest rates are low, which helps with the demand sort of thing. And I'm like, all right, I need to flip. I need to take this time to flip. But I'm sitting here thinking, oh man, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. And I'm on these wholesalers list that when they send these properties over, they're dilapidated, right? Half the roof's gone or something like that. Huge overhauls. I'm like, man, I just don't know if I'm ready for that sort of project. But what you just said made me think I'm looking at the wrong place. I need to get something to just put a little bit of lipstick on it, right? And that's brilliant. I've heard of people doing this. I've just never thought about it until you thought about it that way, until you phrase it that way. But I want to ask you this too, because you said something about having a decorator eye. How important is it to, and I've got one, but she's upstairs with the kids right now. How important is, if somebody wants to get into flipping, that they have to have a decorator eye, so to speak?
Oh my God, that is such a fantastic question. So, two things that will destroy the value of your property. Two things, and they're so tiny and they're so huge. If you do not have a masterful painter that has beautiful lines, no matter how gorgeous the trim work has been done, the drywall has been finished, if you have a painter that doesn't have straight lines and really knows how to tighten up your, caulking, knows how to caulk those seams really well, finish, if they do the first cut, painters, you've got to get a great painter. Right. Second thing is if you don't have I've been hired by flippers because they haven't been able to flip their house, and I walk in, and when I walk in, I'm confused because I'm looking at a color here, it doesn't flow. They've done a terracotta look, and then they switched to farmhouse chic, and then they thought eclectic was a good idea. And then the doorknob's brass and the light fixtures, a black mat, and then I walk into the bathroom and they have a chrome faucet.
So you're saying buyers like a common theme throughout the house for the most part.
The decorator look for your finishes is picking one primary finish. So if you go into your house, if you just change out all the doorknobs and the light fixtures and your faucets, and you use a brushed nickel, you've already raised the value and you're creating a decorator look. I've got several videos on how to create a decorator look, and I actually share my secret colors that I've used to fix and flip houses. You want to pick one or two at the most really hot primary colors where you use them in one room, your statement room. Or you might use it, I use a lot of dynamic colors on one ceiling in the house, and it just pops that room. And when people walk in, they kind of walk in and they look up and they go, wow, actually. And it's only paint, but it's a really beautiful paint color. And it's usually a trending color. I usually use a really dark navy blue on the ceiling, or I might use what's called silver strand. It's a very popular color with Sherwin-Williams.
Okay.
So picking a decorated colors, Jay, is so important. And what I've told some of my, in one of my videos, I said it's even worth hiring a decorator for $100 and have her give you a palette, or go to Sherwin-Williams, because hold on one second.
Yeah.
These things, they're really very useful. If you go into them, they have all, they've kind of done a lot of the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I would recommend. It's just, and it's not just important for flips. What I found when I was in my 30s, when I went through houses, that they were either white, antique white, bright white, dove white, and shit brown.
Yeah.
That's
official color too, right?
Shit brown. And I'm like, and it was mostly male dominated. That was 31 years ago when I started. I'm like, what? No, there's no color in here. Once I started adding color, I noticed that my leases started to renew. And I thought, wow, they're they walk in and they make it's homey. It's not like a medical institution for them. So color is really, really important for retaining tenants because it affects them.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're just listening to this, you're not watching on YouTube, what Deb held up was a booklet, and you said Sherwin Williams, but they're at any paint store, Lowe's, Home Depot, hashtag not sponsored by any of those guys. But it's the little booklet that shows you what a beautiful room looks like, and it tells you all the different colors that are in there. So if you're not watching, that's what she was talking about. The one of the things I want to ask you though, you said paint the ceiling.
Yes.
Something, and it wasn't white. It was another color. It's like a dark color, right?
Yes, I was hoping. So do you see the dark color in my bookcases?
I do. Yeah.
I'm not sure how that looks on your screen, but that's like almost a naval navy. And
Okay.
I use those I'll use it on one ceiling, like say in the dining room. And then this color that's in here, it's silver strand, the light gray you see on my walls. And then I'll hit all the walls in throughout the whole house. I'll use the silver strand. I never use, rarely, I can't say never, I rarely use white semi-gloss on trim. I always go with a lovely light vanilla because it's richer. You want a rich look when the client walks in. So painter and paint colors is going to win the day. Even if you don't have the money to change light fixtures, staying with the same finish, paint colors, and a painter is a huge, great start.
That's great. It is amazing, even with our own personal house, when my wife and I will put a fresh coat of paint on something, and it's like, wow, that is it because it's fresh? Is it because it's a new color? I think it's because it's a new color and it's the right color, because we have painted rooms. Now, this is where she and I disagree on things. Again, I am not the decorator or have a decorating sense, but she would pick a color. I'm like, I don't like that. But I think what you're saying there is it definitely helps, right? I mean, I'm looking at your bookcases. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. But I mean, the room you're in is beautiful. It's very warm, it's very welcoming, and that's what you want when a potential home buyer walks into your flip. Now, which I'm assuming, again, I've never flipped, but that's what I would want if I'm a potential buyer. I try to put myself in their shoes. When you talk about these flips that you're doing and painting ceilings different colors, because I've been in some homes where different ceilings were different colors. They were very high-end homes, right? So give us a range of what kind of flips you're doing. Are you doing high-end? Are you doing middle to low? What price range are we talking about? And
Yes.
Again, we're in Rochester, New York, right?
Yes. So I'm actually investing. I look for small, what I call hamlets. So I'm investing 45 minutes outside of Rochester.
Okay.
I find areas where they have a huge and high demand for first-time home buyer product, and nobody's there fixing and flipping. So in this one community that I'm investing in right now, I've done over 120 units in the last 11 years in that area.
Wow.
And I can't do enough because there's such a starvation for, like, people will buy there, but they'll buy in the town over if they can't find a renovated property. And I think that's what a lot of beginners don't understand, is that you're going to be the best gift to a first-time home buyer because they come with student loans, a child in tow, they're both working, they're exhausted. The last thing they want to do is renovate a house, and they're happy to pay top retail for that first-time home buyer price tag, which is in our markets anywhere from low ends like 85, high end is like 159. It's like the top of the high end. I buy properties that range anywhere from, you won't believe it, but I bought a house for $8,000, but it typically
I do believe it.
I know it. It's typically somewhere around $30,000. And lately, Jay, here's another thing that we're going to see a lot of things are going to be popping up over the next 6 months. In my prediction is 3 of the 6 houses that I did in the last, this year, were renovators that got going and then ran out of steam. So when I bought those properties, they had done the roofs, the windows, there was a new bathroom in one of them. And the same thing with the other one. They actually had done 2 bathrooms, the roof, the window. So a lot of heavy lifting, all the exterior was done. So I paid a little bit more for those. Like I paid 70,000 for them. They sold for 159 to the first person that walked in. And what I had to do is go in and do a new kitchen, backsplash. I love backsplashes. That's another really small decorator thing to do that. I just want to mention something because we're talking about how do you get into the flipping business and how do you affordably stay in the fixing and flipping business. So this is what I learned, and I made several mistakes in the beginning as I started ramping up and becoming a full-time investor. Is what I didn't realize is that the contractors that came in, I learned this because I actually lived in my first 8 flips when I was in my late 20s, early 30s as a single parent. So I didn't have the money to fix and flip. And
Which is a good strategy, by the way. If I think you were about to say, and I cut you off, I'm sorry, but it's a good strategy if you're strapped for cash and you want to get into it and you want to do some live-in flips, right? I mean, that's what we kind of consider this a live-in flip, even though we did all the heavy lifting before we moved in. And now we're at a standstill on do we sell it or do we stay? I want to stay, but we can both know where this is going to go, right? But anyway, you're. I'm sorry, I rudely cut you off.
No, I know. There's so much information in this head. I hope I can get enough out for your viewers. So what I learned is that I would attract a contractor. And when I was living in my flips, what I noticed is that the range of prices I was getting was for the same exact room to get painted would range anywhere from $75 to $400 just to paint the exact same work. And I thought, why is that? Why is there such a wide range? And then as I studied it, because I'm a real sensible gal and I'm real practical. I'm not a pie in the sky sort of person. And I just got really curious about it. So what I noticed is that when I would attract a moonlighter, when I would go looking on a Craigslist ad for a painter, he would be the lowest because it was his second income. He wasn't looking to make, $75 an hour. He was happy with $20 an hour, and usually that money was going to be used for vacation money for his family. And then the next thing that I noticed, Jay, was that the contractors that started coming to work with me, they had a little bit of dysfunction going on, which is pretty relevant, in the contracting. I hate to say it, but there's a lot of it. I guess everywhere, but I think it's really.
I've run into it before. I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's a little bit. But what I noticed was that they would come in and quote me, and I'm like, okay, so what would you quote me if I could promise you work for the whole year? And the price came down in half. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I made a commitment to them and myself that I would keep them busy all year round. So my painting cost went down to $20 an hour to paint. My painting cost to paint a room went into the $125 range per room to get it painted, an average size room with ceiling, trim, and that sort of thing, somewhere between $125 and $150. And what I noticed for them is their lives completely changed because now they usually had fear of quoting. That was their biggest thing, is they didn't want to go out and quote jobs. So now they had to do was work with me, and I just fell in love with these guys. And I've been with the same crew. I've had a couple different crews, but this crew I've been with for about 9 years. And
oh, wow. My
crew is only 3 people. I don't have a big crew. I don't need a big crew. You need an awesome kick-ass painter. You need one amazing multi-talented contractor that can do everything from laying hardwood floors, ceramic tile floors. They do almost all the skill sets. They may miss a few. They may not know how to do a roof if you need a roof. Well, that's a specialist, so then you have to go out and bid that out. If you get the right person on your team, they're pretty resourceful for you. So if you have something that they can't do, they'll say, hey, I know 3 or 4 guys that can come over and give you a quote, and it's someone that they trust that we can work with.
Yeah. So you've been using these guys for 9 years. Do you remember how you found them? Was it a Craigslist ad or was it something else?
Oh yeah,
it was.
So one of the guys was drinking out of a bourbon bottle. Seriously, in front of my building. Oh my God, if he sees this, it's going to kill me. And he was Spanish. And we were moving this big reception area so that we can renovate this building I bought. And my guy called me and he said, I need another pair of hands. I go, well, is there somebody around? I mean, look outside. Because there's this guy that's been hanging out. This is such a crazy story, but this is how it's gone for me. I mean, I have a lot of stories like this. I just feel really, I guess I'll use the word blessed. I know it's overused, but miraculous is how it. So this guy came in, and I'm telling you, the reason he couldn't get a job when he was drinking was because he didn't speak English really well. Very broken English, so talented. And we knew enough to point to things like, can you do this? And he'd nod his head. Can you do that? He'd nod his head. So one of the videos that I created that is kind of interesting is I talk about how I date I don't date contractors, but
not in the sense of
I kind of do, but I don't want to talk about that right now. But
different show.
No, it's not the successful story. This is the oh my gosh. But what I do when I start with them, Jay, is I give them a small task. I'll say, okay, so what would you charge me to paint this room? And they tell me. I'm like, okay, so you're telling me you're a painter. You're telling me that you have really crisp, straight lines. We've agreed on a time frame and a dollar amount. I'm going to be back in a day, and I'm going to see if you've accomplished what you said. That you're basically your mouth matches your feet.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. And then if that works, I give them another small task, and I call it dating. I date. Then I get engaged possibly to that contractor, and then we decide we're going to get married. And this one contractor, the one that was drinking out of the bourbon bottle, I just bought my first rental with him as a way for him to build a retirement for himself.
Oh, nice. Very nice. That's very cool. Yeah, I've had one contractor show up here at our house. He was actually drunk. I could smell it on his breath. He drove here that way. I entertained him for about 5 minutes, and I put him on his way. I was like, I can't do that. So it worked out for you, though. It has worked out for you.
It did. I mean, right now I got a guy that's out of prison I'm working with, and he worked with me for 10 years on and off. He was the kind of guy that when I got really busy, I was like, hey, I need a hand.
Yeah.
And he went to jail for getting, I think, 2 DWIs, and actually I gave him a vehicle because he was so valuable to my team, and he had 4 kids, and he was a single parent. So I swear to God, I wasn't going to work with him again because it wasn't, the end of that story wasn't a lot of fun, but I mean, really, this is just happening in real time. Like in the last 2 weeks, he reached out to me, and I said, you know what, let's give it a shot and see how things go. I said, I'm not making a full commitment to you. I can't, because that was a really miserable ending. I want to make sure, but yeah, it's really worked out for me. I mean, it's worked out for them. That's the cool thing. They stop drinking. They stop gambling. They stop screwing around. They start having money, and they go home, and now their wives aren't yelling at them 6 months out of 12.
Yeah, that's good.
Because they're actually working and doing something productive, and they feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
I call it Rehabbers and Recovery.
There you go. Rehabbers and Recovery. I like it.
Or rehabbers that need to be in recovery.
There you go. You said something earlier I want to circle back to, is that the area you invest in or flip in is really a first-time home buyer's market, right? How do you identify what a first-time home buyer's market looks like geographically, seasonally? Like where are we at? So how do you identify that?
That is a really great question. So the way that I invest for a first-time home buyer is I invest where nobody else is looking. Like I don't want to be in, I call like A, B, C, D. You don't want to be in D, you don't want to be in A, but you want to be in B and C, because that's where you're going to get the best price for you as an investor or a fixer and flipper. That's where the first-time home buyers are looking in the price range that you want to be in. You don't want to be doing the $250,000, $500,000, $1 million McMansions.
Yeah.
That is a very discerning buyer. And I can tell you, I've probably done a half a dozen, and they're so unfulfilling to sell to them because they basically come in and they redo the whole renovation anyway, because they're a third or fourth time home buyer, or they have a lot of money and they can.
So is it the price range inside that B and C that attracts that first time home buyer? Is that what it is, or is it some other demographic?
To those markets, Jay. Like you can see, like the markets that I look for movement. Not a lot of movement, but let's say if it's a C market, I drive markets. Like I'll go into a market and I'm like, okay, this feels like C bridging on D, but can go. I see people starting, like there's like one or two houses on the street that look really nice, and around the corner, not that far away from there, that's like a solid B market where a first time home buyer would buy. So I either look in that B market or I invest and hold. Sometimes I buy a rental and hold I love single family. I just want to say this. I love single family house investing for first time home buyers. It is plug and play. You give them a nice product and literally they're going to pay off your whole mortgage. It's incredible, Jay. I mean, I was not that person. I was taught to buy at least doubles, as many units under one roof. That was the common theme when, back 30 years ago when I was investing. By mistake, in this market that I'm investing in, I bought a single family house right after the crash. I did a beautiful renovation on it. I was going to flip it, but the margin wasn't as juicy as I wanted it to be. And I knew there was a high demand for single family rentals. I rented it. I basically had to beg the guy to move out. I lived there for 7 years. I sold it during COVID. Yeah, I was like, Craig. And he's amazing tenant. Literally, we didn't even have to touch the place up. It was so immaculate.
Wow.
And I sold to the first person that walked in. I love first time. So one of the strategies can be that you buy a single family house, you do a medium renovation, enough to really make it into a beautifully livable home for a family. You get top rents because you're giving them a nicer product than most of the houses in that area. And in my area, like some of the markets that I invest in, I could have counted that they were going to mow today.
I can't hear it, so it's fine.
I'm like, oh my God, they're not mowing today.
It's no worries.
Jeez, honestly, the guy next door has always got his leaf blower out. He leaf blows his pool. He leaf blows his lawn. I think he leaf blows his cereal. I
think our neighbors must be related. So because ours does the same thing. But here's the thing, and I keep telling my wife this because we will joke about. I don't think they listen, but if they do, hey guys, we could have moved to such a worse place where somebody did not take pride in their home and did not take pride in their yard. And, when we hear them at 10 o'clock at night running their lawnmower and it's right outside of our daughter's room, we're like, you know what? I don't know how they're seeing the cut, but at least they're taking care of their stuff and it's going to look immaculate, and that's all good. So, it's all right. I don't hear the leaf blower or the guy cutting grass, so we're all good.
It's so hysterical. Oh God. But first, so how I find the market is I'm a touchy-feely gal, so I can go into market and I can feel it.
Intuition, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like this strong I can also go into a market and go, oh wow, this is not a place to invest. Like this is out. And it can be seductive. Okay. It can be very seductive, some of these markets. Like I have a client right now I'm working with, and he's mentioning they're like beautiful women, and and I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't produce, it's some beautiful women aren't the best ones to marry. They're not it's not going to be a stable commitment for you. Like this is like, get out of there. Like get out of there. Go home. Yeah. And you put an offer in. I was like, okay, get out of that offer. So I like meat and potatoes. I'm a meat and potatoes gal. I always have been. I was raised that way. I'm Scottish. I'm very hardworking. I don't dress like this mostly. I'm in my yoga pants, t-shirt, a ponytail, and half the time I don't have makeup on. Well, I kind of put lipstick on.
We appreciate you dressing up for us today. I appreciate it.
Oh my God, I did. I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, I get to wear some of my nice stuff today. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And I teach that. I I want your viewers to, I love the beginning. The beginning is to have financial independence, like you mentioned, Jay. What I can tell you is that nothing, I don't know, I really don't know of anything, and I research so many things that will give you the freedom that you want down the road. It's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
But by investing in real estate, if I hadn't invested in real estate when I was 30, that's when I started buying rental properties. I retired financially independent at the age of 48. I never had to work another day in my life.
Nice.
Never. Everything was paid off. I had seven-figure income coming in every month.
Nice.
I took 2 years off, and then I was guided to come back into the market. I would say by God, I'll use that word.
Sure.
And I was directed specifically to this city that had been crushed by the collapse of the market, but it had one of the wealthiest colleges in the country there. And I was exhausted, honestly. I was like, no, God, please, no, like I need a rest. Because, raising a kid by yourself, building two businesses was, it was a big endeavor for me. But the rental properties, buying rentals, and I didn't have any money. I was very slow. I was the turtle in the race, but I had a very clearly defined, and that's what the course that I'm offering your viewers for free is. It's called my GPS Foundational Program course. And it's what I want everyone to do before you even get in your car and you start looking at rental properties. Have the right knowledge that you need. Get the right, not a lot of knowledge, not over knowledge. Don't analyze everything. Just you get the right knowledge, and this course will provide that for you. And then get clarity. What is it that you want to end up? What's going to create that independence? What's that number for you? Some people it's $250,000. For me, it was I wanted to have $2 million worth of real estate paid off inside of. I had 3 years to buy it and 15 years to pay it off. That was the way that I structured it for myself. Where do you want to invest? What type of properties do you want to own? What type of tenant do you want to serve? Like that's all in my course where they get really clear, and then your viewers will be able to map out, like, what's it going to look like? When can we scrape together the 10% down payment so we can buy one rental per year over the next 5 years and hit that financial objective that we have? Because I could tell you that the clients that I've worked with the most that have been kind of all over the place is they don't have a plan, they lack clarity, but they know they want to invest in real estate. They have this burning desire to, but they're not sure where, how to start, where to invest. And none of them, not one of them really understood what it looked like to have a financial objective. And I got really good at that because I was always in straight commission sales jobs. So we were always, I don't know if you've had one, Jay, but we kind of made your...
Not straight commission, but it has, for the last 5 or 6 years, it was part of my total compensation package. So yeah, it's always interesting. And I'm glad you brought up the course. I meant to, and I'll go back and do this at the intro and talk about, I'll put a teaser out there about the course you're offering folks here for free. But I love what you're talking about. And just for clarity, when you say clients, you're not talking about your tenants or people who buy your flips. You're talking about people that you coach and mentor along the way to build the real estate portfolio, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
So I've just got into mentorship and coaching in the last 10 years. I wasn't going to do that, but I had people that kept approaching me, asking me if I'd teach them. And so I decided to work with a few gals, and I actually wrote a book called, here it is somewhere. Yep. Yeah, I wrote a book called...
I saw it on Amazon earlier. So.
Yes. So honestly, this is the tiniest investment that you can make, and it's a tutorial. So it's actually a step-by-step, because what I found, it was written because I was motivated by this one gal that I want to say she almost tortured me into coaching her. She wouldn't let me, seriously. She's like,
the best student.
Please. And this is the first client I ever worked with. I'm like, no, I was too busy resurrecting this city that I was involved in. And I said, okay, she asked me enough times, and she was really serious. And I really could see like what she needed. And what a first-time investor needs, or a fixer and flipper, is they have to understand the language of a contractor. Because if you don't know the language, the language is, okay, so what's the square footage? Okay, how do I figure that out? Well, it's length times width. Because they'll say to you, like, what's the square footage?
Very basic stuff.
Yes, if you're not armed with the right information, you're going to overpay.
Yeah.
You're going to overpay for renovations, and once they know that you won't overpay, they'll either come in line with what's realistic for you to hire and work with them, or they'll just move on, which is fine. Either one is fine.
Yeah.
So you need to know, like I've been mentioning, like, how much does it cost to paint an average size room? Anywhere from $125 to $175. If you don't know that, painter's going to come and go, oh, $300 for this room. It's all in the book. I talk about paint colors. I talk about finishes, how important that is. So, so when I talk about clients, I'm talking about the clients that I'm working with that are learning the business. They're business owners. I get a lot of business owners some of them are their wives that decide to take up the reins and be that asset to the marriage, and they want to be the investor end of it. And other clients are business owners mostly.
Well, let's just be fair. Most women have that decorative decorator look, right? They have that eye for that. Most of us guys don't. So that's which, to your point, you got to find that decorator look to be able to become a master flipper, right? That's what I want to circle back to something you just said on the book. Is that a kind of preface to the course that you offer, or is it more of the same thing? It's just a different format, or tell me a little bit more about the course, because we didn't talk about that earlier.
Yes. So the course, I teach three courses.
Okay.
One of them is, so what I'm offering your clients is the first 8 modules of my Building Long-Term Wealth program. And it's called the Foundational, and I offered it for free during COVID, which I've never done before. And that was very successful. I felt really good about so many people that jumped on to learn about, what you need the basics. So you really have a solid foundation. It's so important as a real estate investor, because you don't have it, man, it's tough to build, because once you make a mistake, it's like having a child. You got that child, you got that property. You're pregnant. Let's face it.
I like how you just connected. Having a child is a mistake.
Oh yeah, there's no difference. I'm telling you, you start owning rental properties, and your mama, landlady, or papa,
papa landlady. That's good.
Ladies are really good with tenants too. We just have a natural nurturing ability, because that's hardwired into us, where, guys are the hunters. So they're really great at getting out there and dealing with the contractors and looking for the property and hunting. And the women are really good at creating the nesting feeling of a house and dealing with the emotional elements of dealing with tenants many times. Yeah. So the combination is fantastic with a husband and wife team.
Yeah. It is, and probably where I've struggled in my wife and I's real estate business is not listening to her or thinking I know what's best when it comes to design and a decorative look. And she's right every time. And so I finally figured out, yeah, sure, well, that's fine, whatever. It's that's you, that's not me. So I finally gave in. There was a little bit of need to feel like I was in control of everything. I don't know where that comes from, or I'm sure there's some deep roots from when I was younger or whatever, but psychological deep roots. But I've learned to give that up, right? And quite frankly, she produces a lot better product. I mean, it just is. She took over like the office here. She when we started doing these on YouTube, she was like, "You mind if I decorate your office a little bit?" I was like, "Are you telling me it looks bad?" She goes, "Well, just don't want the dry cleaning hanging in the background and all this other stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, you go for it. Go for it." So
it's very warm and welcoming. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, so I will make links in the show notes for the course. I'll go ahead and give you guys the address. Excuse me. So debcleveland.com is where you can connect with Deb, but her course, her GPS course, I love the name of it, by the way, is you can find that at training.deb.cleveland, like the city.com/GPS dash course, right? So I'll put that in the show notes. But before we get out of here, one last question I want to ask you. You mentioned in your bio, part that I did not get to, is you attribute a lot of your success to finding and working with some of the greatest minds in the business, right? Who taught you the strategic planning, the hope, the possibility creating. So as a newbie investor or a newbie flipper, right? Same thing, but flipper, buy and hold person. How does a newbie person find out who those great people are? And when they find those people, how do they connect with them and how do they stay connected with them?
It's a great question. So because I approached real estate investing like I did my business, like I didn't go into it like a lot of people go into it. I just moved everything that I was learning about business and I applied it to real estate investing. Like that was very easy for me. I didn't understand why people were having so many, problems because it's practical. But the way that what I did, Jay, was I sought out not so much real estate investing. Like I actually didn't seek that out. I read some books about it, but what I knew was important for me was to get my mind right. Mm-hmm. My mind was the most important tool that if that wasn't right, nothing else was going to be right. And it wasn't just my mind because it's connected to your heart. It's like, my father, was a hardworking, workaholic, alcoholic human being. My mother was mentally ill, physically ill, was not a good supporter. I didn't come with, like really good thinking. And I knew that I had a lot of fear, about free falling as a straight commission sales job, but it's all I could get because I was a single parent with no education, and that I needed to feed my son, myself, my family. Right. So it was mostly mindset. And I sought out Deepak Chopra, or I don't even know how I found him, but I actually studied under his practices for 14 years. And I can say the one thing that changed my life, and I know people are going to go running for the hills when they hear this because I was like, honestly, it was so hard for me at first, but find a very simple 5-minute meditation practice, just 5 minutes, just start there. And there's something that happens. There's a gap that shows up between a reactive state and a responding state. It's such a tiny gap, but it gives you a chance to go, oh, is that really what I want to say? Is that really how I want to think? Is that really what I want to do? And it changes the course of your life over and over again. I have so much grace, and I would just say consistently look for things that are going to enrich the way that you think so that you keep a healthy mind, a healthy attitude, and get great habits, habits in place. I would say the one book that I read that I devoured was called The Weekend Millionaire. That was one book that I read that I lived by. And what I loved about that book, Jay, was it was two real average guys like me. They both had families. It was called The Weekend Millionaire because they only had time on the weekends to invest in real estate. And they just very practically explain step by step the real simple way of buying one property at a time.
Yeah. Don't look at it as, don't hear somebody who's flipped 400 properties and has 90 rental units and say, I'll never get there. Just focus on getting that first one done. Right. Love it. I don't think anybody went running for the hills. If they've listened to this any amount of time, they've heard me talk about meditation and how, I used to be one of those people who thought, well, meditation, that's absolutely bonkers. Only crazy people do that. The only crazy people are the ones not doing it. Like I've taken mine to, I wouldn't consider it a next level. It's a different level, because I was getting so much out of meditation. I was like, how do I get more of this? Right. So I discovered the Wim Hof breathing technique, if you're
Oh
familiar
my
with
God.
him. And it is very similar, but it goes to a little bit different. Right. And I'm like, it's just something about, because when we very early got married, every now and then I would just go, and my wife's like, "Why? What's wrong?" You know, because it sounds like I'm taking a deep sigh, like I just read something that's disturbing or whatnot, and I was like, "Oh, nothing. I just forgot to breathe." Because I was so focused on doing something else that I feel like I was running out of oxygen. I just forgot. But now that I found meditation and I'm taking it to the Wim Hof step, you know, it's I do that less, and I feel like I have a lot more clarity. So if you're not meditating, don't think that Deb and I are just quacks. That just it really will help you. Don't knock until you try it, right? So it's one of those things. But anyway, Deb, thank you for being here. We are way over on time as always, which kind of the conversations usually just go. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge, and we'll be in touch soon.
Great. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, everybody.
All right, guys. That's it today with Deb and you gals. First off, I want to thank the women in my life, especially my wife, who has that decorator look. She already knows what she's looking for, even though I've constantly battled her on what I think is going to make more of a profit. She is the person I need to listen to, right? If you guys saw this scene behind me before she took over, it was maddening. So thank you, honey, for what you did. Also, I noticed you got some pictures. There used to be empty picture frames. That one down there is still empty. But anyway, we got pictures now. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would love to see something in the comments from you. What was the one nugget that you found that Deb shared with us that that gave you the most value? It's really what I want to know from you. If you could, hit that like button. Helps with the YouTube algorithm that I'm starting to learn about. And also, I want to see you in this video next, right here. I'll see you guys later.